All right, this is the most influential, the most important game of the day, and it means everything to both Nordavind and BTXL Medic.
Super exciting game, but first I just want to start off 10.15 changes. They buff Rakan again. It's nothing. It's a nothing buff. I hate it. Anyway, BTXL versus Nordavind, very important game. The winner more than likely goes to playoffs. I think it's super exciting, and like the important thing is here getting first place in that group. Both these teams equal on their scoreline right now. If you take a win, you avoid Fnatic rising, right? We all expect Fnatic to get group first seed in Group B. So avoiding Fnatic is just so important when it comes into getting through playoffs and getting a spot in EU Masters.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we've seen how strong Fnatic are today. Undefeated still, getting matched up again would be super rough. And looking into the game, I feel like both teams have put a heavily reliance on their AD carry. Deadly and Chris Big is a really hype matchup for me. But my big question mark for XL is the top side of the map. I'm still not sure what the plan is with Hatrix, because they were trying to make him sort of special light, where he's trying to find priority by himself and roam with things like the Galio and the Twisted Fate. And then they put him on the Azir, which worked, but they keep going back and forth. And I feel like they still haven't found their identity with them. And then looking at the jungle and top lane, I think for both teams, this has been the most inconsistent part of the roster. I think Sendo had a really rough game off stream. Taxa has looked a little bit questionable. And even on the side of Nordavind, Mummis and Nulty have both had games that have kind of cost their team.
I definitely agree. I think that this is also going to be an interesting game, especially because we're going to see some different styles here. We see Nordavind, who's been a very coach team, who's going into the fundamentals. They want to play League of Legends by the book. And then you have the likes of XL, who's like, we're using stage game as practice. So you're really throwing a curveball into a team who's so adamant at being a fundamental team. And it's going to be interesting too, because Nordavind has really declared themselves that they want to be at the top of the scoreboard, and they believe that they can. Well, if you believe you can, you need to beat BTXL.
At what point, though, and this is the question that I have, at what point does BTXL's facade of these are just scrim games, these are practice games, fall, and we have to start saying, well, actually, they're just not playing very well? Because you can use that excuse all you like, but if you end up missing out on first spot in this group as BTXL, that's a failure. That is a failure, in my opinion.
I entirely agree with you. And I think we see similarities with Fnatic and G2 in the LEC, G2 especially, right? They're saying we're taking time off, we're making sure we're ready for playoffs, but you have to make sure you get a good seed in playoffs, especially here. Avoiding Fnatic, like we saw Fnatic just be a demolition crew earlier on today. The entire split, they've been dominant. If BTXL do not win this game, I think that's where you say, you can't keep scrimming. You can't keep like practicing on stage. You actually have to pull out the big performances.
And I think this match is really important because it puts XL 2-0 in the head-to-head against Nordavind, sets them really nicely up to get that first place spot. And if you've looked at the history of the UK scene, Fnatic have been the kryptonite of XL. Every single time they've been second to Fnatic's first, and it's consistently been an issue. And we would probably see that again here. I don't see anything to suggest that this has changed, unless XL just suddenly go, okay, we're serious now when they get to playoffs. I fully expect that they go in as the second seed. Fnatic will smash them down to the losers bracket. So super important for them to start taking it seriously now.
I think this is the game where if they weren't taking it seriously before, and I'm not entirely convinced that they weren't, this is the game where they need to. And obviously that starts with picks and bans. They're very telling sometimes with XL about where they're going to take their draft and whether it's something comfortable for them. So we'll have to see how this pans out. Nordavind versus XL coming up after a very short break.
must be dreaming. Think I saw a ghost. Or was it an angel of the past that we all know? Ain't got the answers, but I hold the hope. So I'm holding on to the love, embracing the unknown. Now I'm dancing to the music. I'll just keep dancing till I lose it. Yeah, I got that fire.
Locked and loaded for our final game of the night, Nordavind versus XL, and there is a lot on the line. As we've said, winner essentially guarantees a playoff spot in Group A. The only other team in the tournament to say that right now is Fnatic, and quite clearly, as Orcs mentioned, XL, and I guess Nordavind too, they really want to avoid Fnatic in that first round of the playoffs.
And as you can see, there are already some strong bans coming out here. Some comfort getting taken away from this is here with Ericsson. We see that he's been extremely inconsistent on it. And then we see a Rakan ban, meaning that he doesn't actually need buffs. So Medic having 50% win rate on him is actually not that hard.
I'm glad you brought that point up, because clearly for it to be a first ban from Nordavind, it suggests it's a really powerful champion and Medic is just bad at that champion.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Either that or, you know, Kasing is a well-known Rakan player. He's very good on
that's
it.
That's a reach. That's a reach. I prepare my analysis.
Yeah. I agree with you guys. The Ashe ban, the Karthus ban, that's kind of to be expected so far. I think Ashe is, as we've said, just such a strong utility AD carry. See, I'm advancing the topic away from the fact that I'm really bad at Rakan. Karthus ban.
Do you know he actually for a long time he had Rakan one trick in his Twitter handle with a 50% win rate, you know? And just I don't know if it's still there.
You could be a bad one trick scoundrel. I was a bad one trick.
That's true. No, you're not actually a bad player. I'm flaming you, but you're actually still pretty good, especially for a play-by-play.
Let's get the banter out of the way. Let's get back to the champ select. So Volibear coming through as a blue side ban. Interesting, because that means you don't really have any priority on it. There's still a lot of AD carry on the table, as we have been talking about. Ophelia is getting out of the picture, which means that today we have seen that Ezreal and Kalista has been in that priority group instead. But there is still a Syndra that's gone through here.
Yeah, I think the two big ones for me are Syndra and Karma that have been left available, but seeing the Aphelios prioritized by BTXL is a bit of an interesting one. Often we don't see as much priority recently on the champion. Ashe is normally the first pick in terms of AD carries, or Karthus going bot. So it suggests to me that, again, typical of XL, they're putting a lot of eggs into the deadly basket and they're relying on the scaling element of him into the late stages of the game.
That is interesting. If they go with this Senna, they could pair it up with, you know, the likes of Wukong that they really like to flex both in the jungle. Now can also be flexed down to Chrisberg. The thing to me is, I think that Aphelios was also a takeaway from Chrisberg. We've seen Chrisberg play Aphelios way more than we've seen a lot of other AD carries. So I think that might have been the idea of it.
Yeah, I think it's actually really interesting. It wasn't the Senna, it was the Karma locked in. I wrote Senna down. I was about to make a really cool point about Wukong Senna, but now with the Karma locked in, the expectation is that Wukong is going either jungle or top lane. Karma will probably go down into the support role, of course, can still be flexed. And what I'd like to see from BTXL here is a little bit of hard engage as the Thresh gets locked in, and just perhaps a safe mid laner here for hat tricks, or your jungler if you really want to put tax on something that he's comfortable with.
Potentially could see hat-tricks going back to that style where they're playing towards bot, because obviously putting some priority towards that Aphelios will go a long way. And regarding this Senna, I think they can still pick it up on this third pick here. And if they want to flex that Karma, obviously they have the flexibility here, because by taking the Wukong and the Karma, essentially they know the Senna's not going to be taken when Aphelios is already down. It's unlikely to see those paired up in tandem with each other. But XL taking the Orianna, so more scaling, more protection for the Aphelios, decent amount of contention for the priority mid, but maybe not as much pressure down towards bot. And we do see that Senna come in as that third pick.
They actually go with the Senna. I think that's so uncharacteristic of Chrisberg with this, you know, Wukong Senna bot lane, because we've usually seen Chrisberg on these carry champions. And when I think Chrisberg, at least one split ago, I thought of Kai'Sa. Now I thought of the Aphelios coming in here. I generally thought that we were going to be seeing an Ezreal Karma bot lane, especially because you're going into Thresh here. So it's going to be a bot lane where they really want some priority down for BTXL, and they really want to get some leads themselves, especially Kasing on his roams too.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting idea here where I've seen a lot more AD Senna, like farming Senna recently, especially in the LEC and in the LCS. And I think there's a possibility that you flex both the Wukong and the Karma. Like Wukong can go jungle top, Karma can go mid, and then you play Senna alongside a powerful support, because the Thresh gives you so much safety into a Wukong Senna, assuming you play that lane properly. I'm a little worried for the engage potential for the Senna Wukong bot lane, which is usually where it thrives.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense in that regard, because 10-14, we saw the changes to make AD carry Senna viable with the soul rate. Chrisbrick is someone who will play the Senna. He played it quite a bit last split when it was really powerful. And I think ultimately, regardless of where they put these champions, what I like about Nordavind's composition is they have a lot of backline threat. They have speed to get in from the Karma. They have the Wukong ult, which is obviously a massive factor. And then the Senna ult can follow. And that's what you need when you're looking at what BTXL have. You need to have this Aphelios and Orianna shut down. If you leave them unchecked, you are going to struggle. So at this point, they can just move around the picks where they want and then look to play for those team fights later on.
What I do like about the fact that Orianna is being prioritized here for hat tricks is the fact that this is more in what I line out in what I would call a hat trick style of play. Like more lane focused, less about being the roam god that Special was, and less about influencing the side lanes, but being a big team fight influencer. And that's kind of what hat tricks was kind of known for previously, just playing these styles of champions. This may be kind of defaulting back to the style of hat tricks that we saw in the SLO before he joined XL.
Even more dive come in here though from Nordavind, and again more flexes. The Echo could go jungle, it could go mid. Don't think it's going to go top, but who even knows at this point. And with BTXL, it feels like they're going for a much more rigid sort of composition, which is straight up front to back. You have your back line, you have your front line, and the thing that's telling is the Sylas ban. You ban Sylas when you want to play a tank because he steals your ultimate, and then with his AP ratios, he uses it better. Ornn is one of the champions that typically that would happen with. Malphite is another, and they have locked that one in.
None of us typed in the Discord to chat, so my apologies.
Medic, you're revealing trade secrets. Trade secrets.
It's what we do. It's what we do. I think BT, there's an interesting idea. Like, do you want a little bit more disengaged? Do you want a little bit more ability to peel off as this heavy dive from Nordavind comes in? The Trundle gives you a little bit of that with the pillar. You can slow up the engage, but also helps you with a bit of catch, because of course pillar into shockwave, pillar into unstoppable force just gives you a really good ability to make picks, or even into the hook. But it's just so interesting to see how BTXL have crafted this composition around the Aphelios and the Orianna being late game carries.
What the Trundle also gives you is that since he has to subjugate, you can't match the tank matchup with another tank, since it's going to be a Vega tank that Trundle is just going to be benefiting from. I was actually curious to see if we were going to see the cannon. We've seen it a lot of times into the Malphite recently, especially in LPL, LEC, but we actually see the Gangplank instead. So still availability to influence the map, and it is going to be that AD carry Senna that you talked about, Ox.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a lot of priority in this bot lane between the Senna and the Karma, a lot of control, a lot of harass, and that's why it's important to have something like the Gangplank that can happily just sit weak side, doesn't really need any attention because he should just go and check, and then you have the ult to help. You're looking at using the speed advantage from the Cannon Barrage and the Karma AoE shield to get onto this backline, and I think that BTXL have drafted this really standard front-to-back composition, but they need to get to the point where Deadly and Hat-Tricks are strong enough and they can sort of survive against this raw threat from Nordavind. I do think, though, with Nordavind, it is going to be a bit trickier to execute, but I think it definitely matches up to what XL have.
Yeah, I think they've drafted well into XL, but as you said, the ease of execution definitely favoring XL's side as well. Plus, you talked about needing some security on the top side of the map. Trundle is one of Tax's best champions. It's also a champion that's quite difficult to get wrong. And Sendo on this Malphite, as long as it doesn't go completely untoward versus the Gangplank, it's a fairly safe pick. So it's kind of shoring up what you were talking about, Orcs. Now we're going to jump into this game. It's Hip Rain and Trouble. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. Looking at the comps here, they've had a pretty spicy draft, especially with Nordavind throwing a lot of flexes out there. You calling out that it's probably going to be the Karma, Senegon in the bot lane Trouble, but I'm liking what XL have done here. They've obviously got Deadly on a hyper carry. He wants to scale up and just kind of take over the games. What we expect from Deadly. They got a good front to back to kind of enable that and almost return to form, like Scoundrel was saying, for Hat-Tricks. Picking a champion that's more focused on the laning and kind of just turning up and being a big kind of team fighting lane champion there in the mid.
I just want to see what kind of iteration are we going to get from BTXL. They've played the bot lane dives. Now with the Rihanna, this is going to be a little bit more tricky. You don't necessarily have the globals. You might just TP down there, but it's not going to be that easy to get the same plays as with a Galio or a Twisted Fate or a Corki. Then on the bot lane, you've got the Thresh. You might expect some roams from Kasing together with his jungler up there. So it looks like the good old let's play for deadly BTXL, because everything around him has been picked to facilitate him and keep him safe into the late game fights. Now, moving over to the other side for Nordavind, I was sure that there wasn't going to be any sign that Crispec was not going to play an ADC champion related. There's no way. The second I saw the Senna, I'm like, this guy's not going to play fasting Senna. This guy's going to play farming Senna in the bot lane. That's why I knew the karma was going down there. We've seen Nolty before playing the Wukong as well, so that's something he's very used to. And the thing is, I do enjoy the bot lane prio for Crispec, because he has previously said that in their scrims, he's been getting repeatedly dived over and over and over again. And by not being pushed underneath your tower, that means it completely nullifies the chance of you getting dived and possibly getting into that mid game unharmed.
I kind of want to just banter back a little bit and talk on the XL side of the bot lane, because when we've seen them play around Deadly, which is the play style we've seen them play around for so long, when that is the case, normally they rely heavily on Taxer and Hatrix roaming down and kind of enable and setting him up. Is Hatrix going to be able to do that on the Orianna versus Ericsson on the Echo? That's my question for you. Are we going to see Hatrix be able to roam down, or is this just more lane focus for him?
See, here's the deal, right? In the mid lane, Hatrix just wants to push his wave in, force the Echo to stay, and Ericsson is gonna need a couple of levels on his Q so he's able to clear the wave over and over again and free himself off of the map. Now, the second he does free himself, he's a threat. Echo is an assassin, and you will be seeing him roaming around the lanes, most likely towards the bot side, to punish Deadly. You very well set him up to be the hero in this composition. He's the guy XL relies on for them to win the game. But we've also seen him overstep his welcome so many times, and what Nordavind need to do is to make sure that Ericsson is there to punish that overstepping.
I remember XL lost last week. In the game we played off-air, XL actually did drop their game, which is really big for them, because they're actually currently tied with Nordavind right now in the standings. Both of these teams 5 and 2. This game decides who is #1 seed in Group A, and could potentially decide who is Group A's #1 seed leaving the season.
I mean,
it's going to be a very, very important one. There's only 2 weeks left.
In all honesty, I don't think they care about who's going to be first seed. They care about who's not going to be second seed, to not face Fnatic the second you get out of and go into the playoffs. So they don't necessarily care. They would rather be, you know, 3rd or 4th seed rather than be second. But just because they're tied right now, yes, they're playing for the chance to not face Fnatic straight up.
Well, Daxter's actually looking for a cheeky gank here. Phase dive comes out from Ericsson, and he's just able to move away, but we'll just afford a little bit of prio over to Hatrix. Zendo got the level advantage in the top lane. Gangplank obviously very good at playing weak side and very good into these tanks for the moment, but Zendo does obviously get the early trades off, and that will force Mumus to walk away.
Yeah, and in all honesty, you kind of want to put the Malphite on the spot right there, right? You want him to push and then try to punish him, because he's not that tanky in the early. Because Singh going in to try and spot Nolty, but the blue buff is gonna go to the Nordavind jungler anyway. That's good stuff we're seeing from Kasting right here. You know, the lane was pushed, so he was free to leave Deadly down there. He wasn't gonna be endangered by anything. And then he gets the dip on where Nolty is and where he's heading to. So now they know he's gonna be bot side. He know he's most likely going for that scuttle crab. And they also have to be careful because he's playing right behind them.
Yeah, Nolty going for a cheeky invade at the moment. May just get spotted out by Taxer. Although Taxer wants to see if he can find something to happen for Ericsson. Looks like he is just going to bolt over. And And not really too much comes from that play in the end.
I mean,
I say that. Taxa gets jumped onto. Parallel convergence is there. Sting does land a hook onto Bebop Bully. Nice amount of damage actually gets turned back around here as Deadly sustaining up for the moment. Chrisberg also putting a bit of poke back in. And at the end of the day, XL walk away with worse for wear on the health bars, and the pots are just going to get burnt. The cookies, they got the healing from Chrisberg as well. And now Deadly actually going to take a little bit of CC here. This could be him taking a fair amount, but the Lantern is used. The Graviton thrown out from Deadly from long range, and Nolte waiting in the wings.
I like the shadow in here by Nolte because his bot lane wants to shove in the wave, go back and reset. And Nolte is there to basically make sure that his bot lane will not get ganked by Taxa. He's keeping them safe. And if there is a chance to dive, that will come from Ericsson. Ericsson has gone back, he has reset, he's got his pink pots in his inventory. And you could very well see him start walking towards that bot lane.
Let's keep our eyes on him for a moment. Taxa actually getting taxed pretty heavily by Nolte. Nolte has a full jungle to go clear outside of just the buff, where Taxa has one camp up available. His Gromp spawning up somewhat soon, but he's actually getting kind of walked around by Nolte. Nolte should be able to pull ahead in experience now off the back of this.
I think it's most like who's going to start getting the vision towards that bot side. This is why you see the junglers sort of clearing really quickly, trying to get their first backs, get these wards in, and then move towards that dragon. You see now that both Hatrix and Nolte went back to reset at the same time, both grabbing a control ward. That to me screams that through the bot lane pushing in, they want to sneak in a dragon.
Isn't enough vision quite yet, like you're saying, though. So we'll have to see where that attention is going to go. Looks like Nordavind are the first ones to get over towards the dragon. But the way shoved in bot lane, Deadly and Kastin come fresh off the base, and the attack speed boots picked up for Deadly. Taxa is on the opposite side of the map for the moment, though.
I mean, at the end of the day, Taxa wants to clear topside because he can see the Nordavind members on the map. Bebop Bully gets a pretty late reset because he wanted to freeze the lane for Chrisberg. And now Chrisberg can stay in a very safe position underneath his tower while Bebop goes back, buys a pink ward. So all in all, the objective has remained the same, but they've lost focus with all the uncoordinated resets, and it's BTXL that push in their waves and have the first dips on the dragon.
Should be that just getting picked up nice and easy. Hatrix able to get stunned up here by Ericsson with the parallel convergence, but Hatrix just turns it back around with quick dissonance. Another invade coming in from Nolte. He is really looking to put Taxa as far behind as possible. There is no camps up and available to him, but Sendo could be on the receiving end of a gank. Cannon Barrage has been used, and Sendo holding the flash, holding the unstoppable force for the moment. The parallel convergence gets used, and the jump in onto Nolte instantly. First blood for Nolte.
That was very, very well played and very patient from Nordavind. Nolte waited for Ericsson to walk up there so he doesn't get spotted by the pink wall, he doesn't scare away the big rock, and now they're denying Sendo so much because he's already used his TP. And as you can see, Mumus goes back to reset and Nolte is the one that pushes through. So they are funneling so much gold onto Nolte's Wukong, who was the one who cast in on the kill as well.
Really heads up play there by Nordavind. They're able to dodge away and a little bit of the burst in CC there. The shield from the Lantern definitely helping.
It's gonna get that much worse, right, in the top lane. Sheen was just bought by Mumus. He wants to bully that Malphite as much as possible. The longer it takes for Malphite to get into these fights for BTXL, the better it is for Nordavind, because Mumus can assist his team by putting down the Cannon Barrage and creating a lot of space. But if Sendo is not there to provide space by being the frontliner, that means that BTXL will be lacking that front line.
I'd like to see a swap come out, really, from XL. Try and see if they can get some plates for themselves. Looks like Taxa's actually just going to move up and start this up. He feels comfortable with the shove from mid and with Kasing at his back to take this.
So
they don't actually even go for the swap, so this actually means that there should just be free farm for Deadly bot lane and free experiences. Nulti is making his way over, and it looks like that is enough to scare or at least spook XL off for the moment. Riftail's not going to fully reset, and Nulti actually trying to keep it aggroed as Taxa places a pillar. Hatrick's making his way over as well, and looks like XL is just going to turn their attention back towards the Rift Herald. It is going to despawn, and
this is so typical BTXL, right? They don't necessarily swap around Deadly. They want him down that bot lane as much free farm as he can get without being threatened versus a Senna, of course. He's not very threatened. And they only roam Kasing over to try and get the Rift Hold. In this attempt, they weren't very successful because Sendo didn't have his ultimate. If he can't engage in together with the Orianna ball for a big shockwave, BTXL don't want to take the fight, so they disengage.
And I think that might just be it for XL's attempt on the Rift Herald. Heading straight back towards bot lane with Deadly and Nordavind. They're going to be the ones to start up the Herald. They've got the vision control to work with.
BTXL is pinging. They want it.
They don't have Deadly or Kasing. There's no way they fight this, right? Taxa going to take the Cyclone. The CC's there and he has to flash away. Hatrix is just farming away. Hatrix, your jungler's in trouble, buddy. No, he wants the wave.
I mean, in all honesty, I felt like if anyone misplayed this, it was Nulti. You have forced flash off of Taxa, and then you flash behind him greedily for the kill. Keep your flash for that next big fight at the Dragon, where it could potentially solidify your win right here. It could solidify the fact that you get so much advantage, so much gold on your side that it's over. But now Sendo walks in.
Sendo did a fair amount of damage there. Hatrix zoning Ericsson off, and this Rift Herald just is not happening for either team.
It's like a volleyball right now. It's been going from hands to hands.
Looks like now they're going to rotate Deadly over. Chrisberg stays in the bot lane, so finally XL decide to commit their resources and their strong members to this objective, and it will result in this Rift Herald. But that was a bit of a back and forth. That was a bit of a saga, to be honest. Finally, it's going to get picked up, and it looks like they're just going to rotate straight up towards the top lane and just try and inject some plate gold into Deadly ASAP. He's got the Inferno, so he can clear the way through fairly quickly.
And also, you've got Mumus up there as well, who wants to stay safe and farm. And by putting so many members up there, he has to respect and fall back. He will clear the wave, though, with the counter barrage. So he denies... He basically denies the denial of XP that BTXL wanted to cause him. So he was one up on them there.
Although,
nevertheless,
Nordavind are just going to trade out, get themselves the Ocean Drake. But this could just be first turret blood over to the side of XL.
It's good to sort of deny it from XL and not allow yourself to take fights to deny soul, but rather take fights that you want to take when you have reached this power spike. They are so close. Mumus almost on the Trinity Force. You see that Ericsson on the Echo now has the Proto Belt. He can start taking more aggressive fights. And of course, that Mana Moon onto Crispec Senna is going to stack slowly but surely. So until then, you want to make sure that you take a breather by grabbing one dragon for yourself and you're not forced to fight.
They're getting forced to flash in the bot lane, however, as Nulti looking to hunt him down. Uses a Seismic Shard for a bit of movement speed. A Cyclone 1 and Cyclone 2 hit their mark. Parallel Convergence coming out. Sendo has the Unstoppable Force, just going to get stunned up under tower, and Ericsson pops in to make sure that the kill's picked up. Nulti's able to find it.
And we talked about this. The second Ericsson steps away from his lane, you have to respect. You either have to invest in a lot of vision and wards around the side laners, or you have to respect the fact that the assassin is no longer seen on the map. Saying that, Hatrix is happy that some other member of his team is dying while he is able to free farm in the mid lane. He's so far ahead in farm that right now he has a bounty on top of his head. That is a very juicy target for Ericsson and Nolty, and I'm expecting to see them trying to get around Hatrix.
This is old school Hatrix. Just farming up, looking to join in on these team fights. Got the Ceres, got the needlessly large rod. A lot of damage on this Orianna. Once that Ceres is fully stacked as well, could start to be a real issue. Deadly as well, getting himself the first turret blood along with the plate gold in his pocket. On the Aphelios, he's starting to ramp up in power, closing in on that Infinity Edge. And all it really cost XL was Sendo dying and a dragon.
And he doesn't really care, honestly. Even if Sendo never gets to his core items, he will still be a nuisance in the front line.
Yeah.
He will still be threatening the immobile backline of Nordavind with his ultimate. So ultimately, Sendo is just there to be annoying. Sendo is just there to misposition Crispec and Bibo Bully and not allow them to get into the fights. So he's fine dying if that means that the rest of his team is going unnoticed, farmed towards that mid game.
I mean, that's one of the nice things when you're playing the Malphite is even if you do fall behind, you still have your ultimate, which is still holds impact. Obviously, the survivability after popping R can fall off if you're really, really far behind. But even so, Sendo, all he has to really do is land a good R, and Hatrix can just follow up with a fatty shockwave.
Yep.
And with the gold lead he's got, with the CS he's been able to get and the items he's got in his pocket, those shockwaves are going to hurt when layered on top of the ultimate coming out from Sendo. The Unstoppable Force doing a lot. And obviously, Deadly, as this game gets later and later, once the Aphelios kind of hits that 3-item mark, when you got the Phantom Dance, the Hurricane, Infinity Edge, that's scary territory for Nordavind. But Nordavind, you know, they've still got options as well. They've got the scaling in the center on this Mirror Mana build, and obviously you've got the Gangplank as well. It looks like they are looking for a little play in the bot lane, but it's so hard to find it when you've got the Lantern to work with.
And this is it, right? 130 for the next dragon. The team that gets it gets one step closer to Soul. You get to force your opponent to come out of hiding, and that is very important because no one waits anymore. You have to fight or you lose Soul. At this point, I would have to say that BTXL are fine to take the fights. Seraphs has been completed onto the Orianna. Infinity is just purchased by Deadly, and Sendo, again, is just there for the ultimate, so you're very happy to take this fight going in forward. Now, I would like to keep my eyes onto Mumus if he chooses to TP for this dragon fight, because his Trinity Force has been completed and he could be a big problem for the backline of BTXL, because his role here is not necessarily to kill the Aphelios if he can reach him, sure, but it's to create that space with his cannon barrage from his carries and the BTXL carries, just so Crispec can get down consistent damage.
Looks like they're maybe looking for a little play into Hatrix. Hatrix able to move away safely.
They're trying. Ever since the bounty came up.
Yeah, actually, did tick up even more, but he's got the Ceres shield as well now, so even harder. And oh, Lord, Ericsson gets chunked. That is actually really unlucky for Nordavind. Getting a chunk onto Ericsson just as the dragon spawns could maybe cost them this objective. He's chugging away at the moment on those potions, but because things there to zone away, they throw out the parallel convergence, hook goes wide, and teleports are coming in. It looks like we're looking on for a fight. Kasing throws out the box as Nolty jumps in onto him. Deadly untouched from the moment. The cannon barrage has been used, and Deadly's the one soaking it up, slowed down and zoned away. XL still not done for the fight yet, but in comes Sender with that Unstoppable Force, ready to go. Watch for the shockwave, watch for the Rockman. Dragon should get picked up for XL, but Nolty slides in forward. It's secured, and the railgun's thrown down. Nolty's clone is very low, but it's not the real Nolty, and XL not going to fall for the bait. XL get the dragon and step away.
I am so surprised that no one went down in this fight. I was expecting Mumus to go in, put down the cannon barrage, and then Nordavind get the dragon. But in the end, it's BTXL coming out winners from that. They have the priority into the mid lane. They managed to steal the dragon away and take mid lane tower. And this is going to be a problem now for Nordavind, because that means they need to extend their vision line to not get caught in that mid lane trying to farm the waves that are incoming. That gives infinite prior to BTXL into the side rivers. And as you can see, Taxa has already started the Rift Herald.
Yeah, Taxa's starting that up. Reset came in from Deadly. He's got the Zeal now as well in his pocket. Tower does get answered out by Mumus in the bot lane at the tail end of that fight, so that's at least the consolation prize for Nordavind. They didn't lose any members. Nobody died. They got a tower, but they do lose the Rift Herald, and Scary thing is that could be used to crack open the last turret on the outer turrets in the bot lane, or XL could use it to actually smash down the tier 2 in the mid lane and fully open the map up for themselves with a very, very long mid that Nordavind will have to play around.
And that could very well be possible, right? Because with these sort of immobile carries on both sides, the first person who opens mid lane does have the advantage. Chrisberg should be scared stepping further out in the mid lane. You can see it right now. He's just hovering around the jungle because he cannot walk further without vision. It's extremely scary and he could instantly get punished. And the story here is literally Chrisberg versus Deadly. Which one of the two is going to be able to carry their team to victory?
Both of them are farming up a Storm. 2 items onto Chrisberg. Obviously needs to stack up that mirror mana a little bit, but XL now grouping up. Hatrix goes to catch the mid wave, and you can tell XL are looking for their opportunity to slap down this Herald, but haven't quite found their mark yet, haven't found their moment. Deadly's going to head back towards the top lane to go catch the wave there. Feels like teams are going to just take a bit of a chill pill. They don't really want to get caught out. Lots on the line, and it feels like with both of these teams, they're both smart enough and both clever enough to be able to take an advantage and push it if it's given to them.
I like how Deadly is highlighted right here because he's literally pulled from lane to lane to lane. Wherever there's a wave crashing in, Deadly is there with his mouth open to devour that. Right now, BTXL is playing the waiting game. They know they're in the lead. They know they have the 2 dragons. They have nothing to worry about. They're stacking items onto the Orianna and the Aphelios, and they're just playing the waiting game. Basically, it's Nordavind who have to make the proactive play because by default, BTXL's composition will strive in team fights.
20 minutes on the clock. The gold lead is in favor of XL. Had a brain fart there. They will get a second charge out of the Herald, but it won't result in a tower going down. Does do a lot of damage to it, however. It looks like they may just fully commit for this tower. Patrick is going to throw down the minion wave, but a good cannon barrage comes out from Mummus to clear out the wave, and this will just be the end of the tower at least. So it does finally go down. Sendo holding his own in the top lane, so there won't be an answer from Nordavind top side, and that is now 4 turrets to 2 for XL. We can look to go back to base and spend that gold. The Spellbinder has been picked up for Hatrix. Probably will be the Runaan's Hurricane for Deadly at this point as well. Yep, he gets that and an extra crit cloak. So building towards that PD is his 3rd item. Deadly's pretty much closing in on being fully online at this point on their Aphelios.
I'm loving what Sendo is doing with his build. He's got the Shin in there. To me, that kind of rings the bell of Iceborne Gauntlet. That doesn't just secure the fact when he goes into the ult, he pins someone down with the ultimate, but also the auto attack proc from the Iceborne Gauntlet is going to totally immobilize and slow whoever is around him. And I'm expecting for Chrisberg, if he missteps, he's gonna get very, very hardly punished by all that. And now, as you can see, BTXL are very confident. You mentioned Runaan's Hurricane, Infinite Edge onto the Aphelios, 2 items onto your Orianna, Gargoyles completed onto your front line as well with the Trundle. You are ready to fight, so you want to get to that dragon as fast as possible. Try to stack them up. At this point, Nordavind, they're pulling the trigger. They want to fight too.
They want to contest. Hatrix has actually been zoned out a little bit here. Ericsson teleports in, and actually means XL are just going to back off. They're really not feeling it. Waiting for the opportunity to kind of catch them grouped out. Sendo stepping forward. Has got the ultimate. The dragon's going to get reset as Sendo gets CC'd momentarily. Look for Ericsson on that long, long flank. Deadly and Hatrix zoned away by the cannon barrage. Ericsson throws out the parallel convergence and does find himself a little chunked. As Tax is looking in to try and steal this away. The Cyclone's been used. Deadly's firing out. Dragon, 1k HP. That's going to be the secure for Nordavind as a railgun comes down. The Infernum spreads and a shutdown's been picked up by Hatrix already. Nordavind trying to find their opening, but the health bars are so low. The Infernum doing a lot of damage, and Deadly able to get a kill off onto Merce on the backline. Has himself the Shockwave to follow up, and it's a double kill for Deadly, as Nordavind only have 2. Ericsson pings back into the fight, gets himself an assassination off onto Sendo. Parallel conversion shield will not be enough, and XL get the ace.
Nordavind get the Dragon, but at what cost? They've lost every single member. And I think right there, Nordavind had a little bit of a Monster Rugby gaming syndrome where they actually get something and they just never back out. They want to fight. This is a great fight right here because Hatrix, actually Ericsson is keeping Hatrix very busy. So the Oriana Ball is not there to disrupt the fight. You're not scared of the Malphite running into you, and they steal the Dragon. This is the time where you back off. You've gotten what you went there for, but they see all these super low bars on the side of BTXL, and they decide they want to take the fight, even 4v5. The Shockwave comes back up from the cooldown, and they just completely decimate the rest of Nordavind.
Well, XL now, let's see what they're going to do with this. Deadly very close towards that Phantom Dancer. You saw how much he was able to do in the last fight. Hatrix over in the top side, building towards his death cap now. Got a stopwatch on the inventory. Sendo pretty armored up at this point, and that's actually going to make Chrisberg's life really hard. Obviously with the Manamine he has got Raw Adine, has got a Zeal to work with, but also going with the lethality build, almost kind of being somewhat redundant at this point from Sendo's build with the Duskblade.
So, talking about items, I'm looking into Ericsson's inventory and I'm seeing him going towards the Nastor's Tooth. And I'm expecting him to just simply play side lane, wanting that attack speed in there, whilst BTXL is doing Baron, not even have absolutely no clue what's happening.
Yeah, they just actually have no idea. They're moving over now. Baron's on 5k HP. Railgun comes out because Fink's actually pretty low. As Nolty might be able to find himself an opening. The cannon barrage is there. Shockwave does land on the Bebop on the back end as Ericsson pings back out. Deadly free-firing away onto Nolty, but now he might get himself CC'd out. Deadly has to flash away, but the shields and the healing is actually enough. Deadly's able to get himself a kill. Ericsson's going to get taken out as well. Deadly finds a double kill. XL bite back one more time into Nordavind. And Nolty just going to get dismantled as Hatrix takes him out. Baron's back onto business for XL. And they should be able to get it this time.
It was a trap, Hipbrain. It was a trap. It was a double-edged sword by Nordavind. And Nordavind didn't know which edge to take first because they're both very freaking painful. Are you going to let the Baron go to BTXL, or are you going to try to take a fight 4v5? You cannot take a fight. The carries are so extremely bad right now. And sure, they take Sync down straight away. But look at what Hatrix is doing. He's zoning away both Chrisbeck and Bebop Bully. And then Chrisbeck is just instantly gone. We talked about Sendo. It doesn't matter if he has items. He lands one ult, the game is over for Nordavind. Chrisbeck cannot play the game. He could not play the fight. And they lost their team. And they lost their Baron. And it's looking very serious for BTXL. They're giving us a completely new team. Sure, they might have defaulted back to the style that they wanted to play with Deadly being the initial carry here, but it seems to suit them a lot.
I think this game has shown a little bit of growth from XL from their playstyle, because it was all just about leaning bot towards Deadly. And sure, Deadly still is one of the star players, but they weren't reliant on Hatrix roaming down and setting them up. It's great to see this. As turret on the top side will fall. The Baron shove starting up for XL, and Nordavind going to try and hold their own here. But I just a little hesitant on whether or not they can.
There's basically no wave clear if the Echo is there. You would want your Echo on the side lane, but Chrisberg, oh boy.
Chrisberg, he's down. Hatrix finds the kill. Lantern back out to safety as well, so they can't even turn it back around. Tower's going to get started up as the cannon barrage gets thrown down to try and clear out the wave, but Nolty jumping in, jumping out. The tankiness on Sendo is just way too much, and Deadly, he is just a huge threat right now. as these towers are going to fall down. XL looking to snap the jaws shut onto Nordavind and claim first in the group. They are going to back off for now. Maybe get himself a little bit more before they look to close this game out. Don't want to throw. Although Deadly, standing inside the base, does have a lantern to run to. They will just advance up and take the top lane tier 3.
And have a look at the ultimates. The shockwave is almost back up and available. Oh.
XL probably just going to take a step back. They can go get the dragon. They can reset and then look to close this game out if they want to. Nordavind really starting to struggle. Their backs are well and truly to the wall here.
I think Nordavind are losing in their own game, because I've called Nordavind and BTXL light, where they rely onto their ADC. And right now with Crispec being forced onto a non-hyper carry ADC seems to be costing them so much. I'd like to see the damage overall in the game from Crispec, because I don't think he's done that much. Look at Deadly, he's 4,000 gold in the lead. This guy is untouchable. You thought this guy needed death stance to do damage? This guy's been doing damage from 2 items.
We've seen for a while as well, a lot of the affiliates have actually started to get the death stance either later in the build or not at all. Phantom Dancer into the kind of 45% attack speed crit build has been favored a little bit more. XL looking to play this by the books though for now. Shoving in this bot lane. Crispberg's melted. Nulty jumps in, throws out a Cyclone, but Deadly just firing away, completely untouched as Ericsson launches in and then pings straight back out. Stendo way too tanky to deal with, and Hatrix uses the shockwave onto Ericsson, finds himself a dominating kill. As the last turret that isn't defending a Nexus falls, XL closing in on the remaining 2 members of Nordavind. No cannon barrage, no minions to work with. Nordavind have nothing in their base. XL's loss last week off stream was a fluke. They are here to claim first in Group A, and they do it in dominating fashion. Deadly 5-0 on the Aphelios. Hatrix 6-0 on the Orianna. Some glory kills to pad the numbers as the railgun is sent them packing, but 30 minutes on the clock, and it's XL's win.
And I'm pretty sure that with this BTXL also secure the playoffs spot right here. And I just have to say, they look extremely clean. Nordavind is a team that sort of wants to play the same game. You know, you funnel everything onto your ADC. And when Crispec goes 0-4, you know the game is really rough from Nordavind. The idea was great. The Senna Kama should never be dived technically in the lane. Little did he know they didn't care about diving him in lane, because they had the perfect tools to keep on repeatedly dive him throughout the entire game. Crispec didn't get to play the game. Deadly did everything he wanted, and the story of this game was better ADC wins. Deadly seemed to be the better ADC on the day.
You said at the beginning of the game, this is going to be about the ADCs being the heroes. I feel Hatrix also had a really good game, but those team fights were just Deadly dominated. He was untouchable. The fresh lanterns and just the repositioning that King offered him was way too much for Nordavind to deal with. And that is XL once again reclaiming their spots at the top. And I believe, like you said, also getting themselves qualified at least into playoffs. So we'll have to see how everything else is going to fall over the next few well, we've only got 3 days of show left, so there is not a lot to really for them to, like, as long as they play on this form, they should at least take first in Group A. But guys, we are going to end it there. We're going to come back with our analyst desk after this quick break. We'll see you in a second.
So I want to start off by congratulating XL. They have secured a playoff spot in Group A. It's a huge win for them. It also puts them in good stead to avoid Fnatic in the opening round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, they just finally look better, XL. It was finally a team where I'm like, oh, you didn't limit test, you didn't go for some plays that really didn't make any sense at all. It was just a BTXL that actually looked coordinated for once. I like the way they played around Deadly. Yeah, they still have that mimic playstyle of Deadly is the carry and he's the guy we're playing for. But even Hatrix had a good showing on his Orianna. And it's something that I just really miss from this BTXL roster. They delivered that to me.
And I think I liked seeing Hatrix in this form, being that second carry for the team. He was huge on the Orianna, and I think this is really where I ideally see him slipping into the roster. It's taken most of the split to find that, but he isn't special. You shouldn't be playing around him like he is special. You should be playing around him like he is Hatrix, and I think this is how we're going to see him flourish on this team. And I think on top of that, the composition, we said there were maybe some concerns about the top jungle. They basically put them on champions where it's very simple to carry out what they need to do. The Malphite was perfect for Sendo, and it made an easy to play composition. And when it's an important game like this, I prefer that to what Nordavind threw up, which was something that would take a lot of skill to be able to pull off.
And I can kind of understand why Nordavind would have gone for something like that. Like if you're playing against a team that you think is better than you, maybe you go for a composition that isn't just fundamentals because you assume that the other team is going to play the fundamentals better than you are. But putting Chrisberg on Senna just really didn't seem to suit him as a champion. He was constantly getting picked off. He didn't have the agency that he usually would on something like the MF or the Aphelios to really try and hard carry a game. Yeah,
and I think actually that brings in a nice segue here, Medic, as we have our play of the game ready to go, hopefully with Orcs. And it did include 200 years of League of Legends designing experience in action.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the backline was so fed at this point. But what's really interesting me for this clip is this could have been a play of the match for the side of Nordavind. At the start of it, I was actually thinking this is Nordavind's way back into the game because you see the HP is getting low, a great center ult, the Gangplank ult as well following up. And it looks like XL in a rough position, but just watch Deadly here. He gets threatened. You can see Nolty jumping in. Ericsson then comes in with a barrel chain as well. And the healing is just so huge here. He's able to find some space. He's able to turn it around. And yeah, I mean, it's just 200 years.
It is, and I think Deadly switching from Infernum to Crescendum right at the start of that fight is really what changed it for them. As soon as he gets the red and the white gun, he's just so unkillable in that sort of situation. And as soon as if you get close to him, he's just going to do more damage to you. So partly playing the champion, partly just timing his weapon switches really well. You got to give him credit.
And someone else who had a really good performance that game, we kind of mentioned it briefly, was Hatrix. And I have got Hatrix ready for an interview. So second time we get to chat to you this season, Hatrix. And it was a really convincing win. And I think a convincing win when we wanted to see that from XL as well, especially given what was at stake. So first of all, congratulations for making playoffs. You guys are now secured for playoffs in Group A. And first, you know, sort of going into that game specifically, that definitely felt like back to basics for XL. It felt like no crazy experiments, no crazy limit testing. Was that just a composition where you said, okay, we just want to strictly win this and we want to make it as easy as possible?
Yeah, it's for sure part of that. We've had some really rough games against Riddle, and like you said, we have been trying a lot of stuff. You know, we're trying not to put out too much pressure on ourselves when it comes to these games. So we've been, you know, trying to play these comps that require a lot more of us to win the game. Obviously, you know, we fell a bit short, but it's not like we just doubled down on screw it, let's just do the easiest comp ever. I think it's a very legit comp, and I think we got the draft that we wanted, and I think they drafted something that we didn't expect. So I think our comp was really solid, and obviously I'm happy we won, and we played a lot cleaner now than we've had in the other games. So it's a step in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. You look very good this game. Talk to me a little bit about the comp that you saw up against you then. When you saw that draft come through, how did you go about dealing with it in game? What was the plan of action from the start of the game when you saw the Echo, the Senna bot lane? Like, what was your plan of action?
Well, we kind of knew that if we are even into the mid game, that favors us, because they don't, other than the Echo, who needs to be accelerated to beat Orianna, they don't really have much silent threat, and we know that if we can stop them from flanking us, they can't really out-teamfight us out-teamfight us either, so it didn't feel too hard. You know, we had a pretty clear plan on what we want to do, you know, try and get dragons, make sure we swap our pressure around if we can get priority, and just wait for them to make a mistake so we can pull the trigger, and I think that's kind of what happened.
Actually, you on the Orianna, there's been a lot of discussion about what is the Hat-Trick's playstyle that works best for you. After like playing some of the NLC now, what do you think is the playstyle that suits you best? Is it kind of a lane-focused teamfight pick like Orianna, or is it being something more like the the Galio where you have the impact in the side lanes? What for you from a personal level, after playing through these games, what has been the most comfortable role for you in this XL squad?
I mean, I think it always feels kind of nice to play these scaling team fighters. You know, it takes a lot of pressure off my shoulders, and you can play a lot cleaner game that way because you have a lot of tools, right, in a Zero Orianna. But I don't think I really have a preferred style. Like, my personal preferred style is aggressive counter picks like the Echo or an Akali.
Yeah.
But it's just not really in season right now. But I think... I don't really have a preferred style. Like, I really like playing Galio TF, being able to impact the map, but I'm also really fine playing these control mages and playing for a team fight or buffing up Deadly, stuff like this. So
that's interesting, because we've always talked about XL being like a Deadly team. Like, it's like just shovel as many resources into Deadly and Deadly will carry. Is that something that you've tried to play towards, or is it something that you've tried to sort of grow out of as a team, especially now that you've come onto the roster in place of Special?
I don't think we really think about it like, oh, it's a Deadly team, let's buff Deadly. We just try and draft what works best for us in scrims, I suppose. And I'm not trying to just be the filler guy, you know?
Sure. Who
comes in and like plays only for the team. Like, I also want to be able to take resources and carry games, and so this draft, obviously, you know, a lot more room for Deadly to play, and like the game I played Galio, but it's just the way the meta is right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's playing really good, so I don't mind it. Like, I'll keep winning. Like, if I play Ori Galio, so...
Wins the win, right? Yeah. we take the W's. And obviously, you guys are now set up to be first place in the group. Not yet confirmed. You're just guaranteed playoffs at this point in time.
Yep.
And obviously, when we talked to Fnatic earlier, we asked if, you know, they were looking towards any other regions. They were thinking about European Masters already. Have you guys had any look towards other regions? Are there other teams that you have been studying in the build-up towards the European Masters competition?
Yeah, for sure. I think every region kind of has their own style in how they play the game. So I think if you pay attention to how teams play, especially like the German league, you know, they have a very crazy style, and you know, like the Polish league, like if you can look and kind of get used to these kind of play styles before EU Masters, then that's a huge plus, right? Because I mean, no one in NLC is gonna draft the way like some German teams do, so it's gonna be different for sure. But you know, we're paying attention, trying to pick up on what they're doing and understand why they're doing stuff.
It's good to get prepared, obviously, and you guys are in a good spot to advance to the European Masters, you know, following on from the NLC. Hat-Tricks, lovely to chat to you, bud. Congratulations again for making playoffs, and yeah, hopefully you secure that first spot.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
All right, nice to hear from Hat-Tricks, guys. Always so eloquent, and actually, nice. You know, it's good to hear that I actually quite like to hear from him that he has his own personal drive. You know, he's not just about being the Deadly guy. He actually wants to be a carry for XL as well, and that's actually quite nice to hear. You know, it's quite nice to hear him have that personal drive to succeed on the roster, rather than just being a role player.
I think it's even nice of him to actually understand that it's because the meta just doesn't suit this style right now. So not only is he saying, yeah, I would like to be the carry here, but he's not egoistic about it. He's like, there's no ego here. He knows Deadly, the meta suits him better now. So let me just do my role as a mid laner now. If they want me to be the Galio, I'll be the Galio. But as soon as the meta suits me getting resources, I'm going to get him.
Yeah, and I think it was shown there that when he has the resources, he can be super impactful. And I think it goes a long way having more than one carry on the team. I think sometimes if you have a single carry, it can be really limiting if you're too heavily focused around bot lane and that fails. And that's something we saw a little bit in XL when it was just heavily playing through bot for Deadly. So as much as he is willing to do that, I do prefer him being on these scaling mages and having his own agency in these team fights. And we saw the team fight execution was really crisp there.
Yeah, let's kind of reflect back on the other games that we've seen today as well. Obviously, with that XL win, they have secured themselves playoffs, but we did have some other impactful results to talk about. First game of the day was obviously Tricked versus Barrage. Big win for Tricked here, because that's putting them in a good spot for Group B playoffs as well.
Yeah, I think we had a couple of games at the start of the day that were like super one-sided. The Fnatic Monster game, the Trick Barrage game, and I didn't really get much more out of these teams than I expected to get out of them. I expected Trick to beat Barrage. They did it in relatively convincing fashion, which is great. I hoped Monster could put up a little bit more of a challenge against Fnatic, especially since they're still competing for a playoff spot. But Fnatic obviously just still devastated them from that level 1. And what I want to see from these teams like tomorrow and going forward is just that little bit more that really solidifies them as a playoff contender.
Yeah, because at this point, we are getting close towards the end. Some teams only have 2 games left before the end of the split, and it really becomes super important here to be finding these wins on the map, getting the advantages, and just going for that point with the disappointing in Munster. I think that, for me, over this entire split has been the biggest disappointment, because the expectations were, and still are, huge for that roster. But at this point, being so close to the end and just fundamentally failing so heavily against Fnatic, it's just really rough to see.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even think it's only going to be against Fnatic. I think they're still going to be struggling against a lot of the other teams, and I'm fairly sure that actually now that we are starting to see what teams might be coming into the playoffs, at least from the top side teams here, I'm still fairly sure of Nordavind, them pushing XL this way still gives me a promising hope for them. But the rest of them, I'm still so unsure about them, because they're just having this weird play style every now and then that is just so inconsistent.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you, and I think inconsistency is the key word there, Goldbook, right? Like, when you are at this level, and we've talked about it so often over the last few weeks, is like, if you can give me a style that you are good at, and you can do that week in, week out, you're very likely to place top 2, top 3 in your division. And then after that, experiment all you want, right? Get your playoff spot, but then show me something different as you try and win playoffs and try and get into the EU Masters. There are some huge games coming up for some of these teams tomorrow. Like, Munster playing Barrage is absolutely massive for them. And they just need to be able to pick themselves up after an awful loss today and not go into tomorrow thinking they need to do the same thing.
I think, you even heard me talk about it earlier, I think that Monster has been the most disappointing thing for me this entire split as well, you know. I was kind of really into League of Legends in an era where I saw Maxlaw go from renegades in the UK scene to Misfits getting to the World's quarterfinals, or what, you know, whatever it was for Misfits when they fought up against SKT in a best of 5. That was a huge thing for me, and actually to see kind of a team with that kind of quality of player, with Heaver, who was on that same roster, you know, with Alfari, that was a superstar roster back then in the UK scene. To see them in this situation now is a bit haunting. But I do have hope. You know, I think this is a team that still has the talented players. And I think Orcs has just, you know, hit the nail on the head when he said, like, they should be really good. It's just about, can they actually make it work as a unit? Because individually, they're some of the best players that we have in our entire league. But look, let's lament no further. We have more games to come. They're not exactly out of playoffs, so there's still plenty of time for them to work with. We have a play of the day, and I don't even know what Orcs has chosen for this. So Orcs, I'm gonna let you run with this one. Surprise us.
I mean, this for me was just the most enjoyable, the cleanest, and I think we've seen a lot of crazy team fights, a lot of explosive ones. I think N's just delivered. I just love the combination. We see a lot of team fighting tools in here, and we get the Ornhorn into the Rakan knockup. Then there's the True Shot Barrage. Then there's the Shockwave with the Volley Bear on top, and it's so nice just seeing a team fight pulled off perfectly like that. I just love it.
And it's not only pulled off perfect, right? It's literally just coordinated. It's like, oh, it's my turn now. It's my turn now. Like, they're just literally taking turns on beating the dead horse. And what singularity there.
Yeah, I think they could have played that team fight many ways, realistically, and they still would have won. But the layering of CC and the timing of it, I agree with Orcs. Beautiful to watch. Guys, let's take a look at standings. Let's have a look at where we are in the split right now. As you can see, BTXL in 6 and 2. So with, I think, mostly 2 games remaining for a lot of these teams, there's very little way that XL can actually be knocked out of this top spot, or rather in the top 4 spots. And then if we move over to Group B, you can have a look a little bit further. Obviously, Singularity are eliminated. The funny thing about Division B, however, is M&M, who have got a worse score than Division technically, than Singularity technically, although they are yet to play a game in hand. They are not out of the running just yet. They could still overtake Barrage and look for that 5th spot in the league. They are definitely out of playoffs contention, I believe, or at least technically, I believe. I keep saying believe. But M&M are still out in the running to get out of a relegation spot. Fnatic, as we said previously, they are guaranteed the top 4 in that particular group.
I think just
no, after you, man.
Yeah, sure. I think just in general, it's so funny between these two groups. We started like, is this group better? Is this group better? I honestly can't tell anymore, because I think that Fnatic is definitely looking like the strongest teams, but then the other teams have the same similarities where I'm seeing the same issues, the same struggles, and when they're winning, it's always the same thing we're saying. Just draft easy, try and make an easy win condition for you. And as Medic just touched on before, the easy win condition should be something you should be capable of doing in the beginning. When you know how to do that, then evolve as a team so you're ready for your masters. But they just completely skip that step, and a lot of the teams are still a big question mark for me.
I think a lot of that comes down to drafting. You have to look at how you draft simply and coherently. Like the next tomorrow and then the 3 games next week really define these teams to me, right? Like this is where it all comes down to, have you got your single strategy prepared, maybe 2 strategies prepared that you can execute day in, day out? And if you can't do that, then do you really deserve to be competing in playoffs with a team like Fnatic, who are just dominant no matter what playstyle they play, and BTXL, who have shown us today that although they've been experimenting a little this split, are still able to pull a win out of the bag when they need it.
I think that's the thing, is you don't have to beat Fnatic in every single play style. You just need to find an avenue that you can approach where you can come out favorably. And often there'll be a situation in a series where they may not have time to adapt, or if they do, you can at least put a good headway in. And then if you get knocked down to the losers bracket, you have a chance to adapt once again and face up to them. But I think we've seen teams like Singularity really struggle when they've had their own play style and it hasn't really functioned well. And as a result, they're now our first team who've been knocked into the relegations.
Well, guys, we've got plenty of games coming up over the next 3 or 4 days of broadcast over the next few weeks, and all of them are going to matter in some way, shape, or form in terms of shaping these groups. There's still a lot to play for a lot of the teams. In fact, the only team that there isn't anything to play for right now is Singularity. So, as we said, loads of really important games, and specifically